Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and in this week's training we're going to be building a dynamic vehicle expense tracker. We're going to have a single click menu at the top. We're going to be able to choose from vehicles, repairs and maintenance, fuel purchases, reminders, expenses, and we're going to have a dashboard all built into one single application, and we're going to build it from scratch right in front of your eyes. I can't wait, so let's get started. Alright, thanks so much for joining me today. We've got an amazing vehicle expense tracker we're going to build right in front of you. This is going to be able to track all of your vehicle expenses. We're going to be able to track reminders, things that you want to check for in the future. We'll have a little dashboard. It'll cover any miscellaneous expenses, fuel costs, and whatnot. We've got it all covered in this dynamic training. I'm going to do all that. I'm wrapping it all up into a single click tab with shapes up at the top, so we're going to be able to do different sections. Really a cool single click tab feature on pictures, so I can't wait to show that to you. Before I get started, I want to make sure that you have subscribed. If not, please do so, and make sure you click the reminder icon. That'll make sure you get these free videos each and every week. And if you do like these applications, I'll include a link down below. You can download it for free, but if you want 100 for just $37, I've got an incredible zip package full of all of my best training videos. Actually, over 100 of them, all the applications in one single zip folder, and that's going to include a library, so you're going to be able to single click the video, single click to open the application. A really dynamic library. That's all included, and it's only $37. So if you haven't gotten that yet, make sure you pick it up while I keep that price low. All right, I want to get started on this. I show you how to create these amazing applications each and every week. If you want to learn how to create these applications and turn that into passive recurring income, I want to help you, and that's going to be through our mentorship program. Go to myexcelmentor.com. I'm going to show you every single step on how to create these applications and turn them into income that you can count on. You won't get fired from a job again. You will never have to worry. When you take my mentorship course, I will ensure that you have all the ability to create these applications, sell them on your own, and that's going to be coming from defining the application all the way into designing your applications. We're going to move into the development phase, and finally deployment, where we're going to show you how to license and secure, protect it, put it on a website, and create cash flow from your website. All right, that's great. That's in our mentorship program. I hope you'll join us there. I'll include the links down below, so if you want to check that out, go ahead. All right, let's get started on this week's training because we've got so much to cover. What I want to do is I want to create basically a single click application icons at the top, and we'll have about 6 different options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save those first 2 columns just for admin, so you can then hide them. And this top, we're going to give this a nice different fade, just like we do before, but I'm going to format those cells. What I want to do is I want to create a really nice effect, maybe a fade effect, so we'll just use the standard blue color that we usually do. But this one's going to be very distinct because I'm going to create a really unique feature in this second row here. And what that we're going to do is we're going to be able to give it a single click. We're going to have buttons and shapes, and that's going to create more of a horizontal tab feature where we have horizontal tabs, and then we'll click buttons. So what I want to do is I want to put a button here, here, and here. So we'll put different buttons. Those are going to be shapes. It'll be really cool. I'm going to use this one for conditional formatting. I'm going to show you how we do that. But right now what we'll do is we'll just color all the way down, maybe way down, just down here to 91 or something like that. We're going to go way down because what I want to do is create a vertical, so we're going to hide and show rows accordingly. So maybe on the first row we're going to show different vehicles. I want to have multiple vehicles, and I want to start that off. So maybe in D5 I want to put a vehicle list here. So this is going to be our first tab, vehicle list. So let's just say car 1. So we'll just car 1, and we'll just go down, a few different cars. I'm going to change that. So basically I want this to have a car list, and we'll include, maybe we're going to go, I want this first group to be from, let's say 4 to L. We'll go down to line 16. So I'm just going to create a border around that, and that'll be our first group because I want different groups. So basically what I want to do is I want to create different groups. So basically I want to create different groups here. So our first group are here and here and here and here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to hide the rows, and then we're going to go to the second group, hide the rows, and go to the second group. So this first group I want to call this vehicles. So let's just write that out, vehicles. That's going to track all of our vehicles here. So I'm going to merge and center that across. And then what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate that across each one section, and each section is going to have a different name, so we can track all the different types of expenses for those vehicles. And let's make that a little bit larger so we can see it. Okay, that's nice. I like that. And I want to do the same thing for the next. And the next one, I want to create a repair section. So what we'll do is we'll do this, and then I want repairs. This one's going to be repairs and expenses. Okay, so I want to track repairs and expenses. Okay, but obviously this one's not going to have a vehicle list. And then the next section, what I want to do is I want to have fuel purchases and tracking. And so what I'll do is I'll just copy this here, and then we'll bring it down here, and we'll bring this down. We can extend this gray also. So this one's going to be fuel purchases and tracking, because I want to track all the fuel purchases and tracking. And what about the next one? I also want to know information about reminders. I want to keep track of if there's an oil change needed or if there's some kind of maintenance that's regular. I want to know that. So the best thing to do is do reminders. This one's going to be a little bit larger though, because I want to track multiple reminders. So let's go down about to 60 here, and I'm going to format that cells, put a border around that just temporarily so we can keep track of the different sections. And we're going to call this one reminders. Just call it reminders. Merge and center. Again, I'm just going to copy this here and then paste it down here because I want to make sure it's the same size, and we'll call this reminders. So we're going to have reminders of different aspects of our car maintenance that we want to keep track of. So lastly, I want to have meter tracking, and then we'll put in reports. So meter tracking is going to be the same as purchase and tracking. It means I want to track, I want to know the meter, how many kilometers did it go and what dates, and I want to keep track of all of that. And so we'll call that meter tracking. And each one of these are going to be a tab, so that way we're just going to see only one section at a time. And then lastly, I want a complete dashboard. I think that's going to really help us. So I want to know all the costs per particular car, or all of the different meters and the information, fuel and repair expenses. So I want that. So vehicle dashboard. Okay, that's going to round it out. Now we've got our sections. So what I want to do is I want to display only one of these sections at a single time. And I want to use a tab to do that. And so make sure we have all of our tabs on correctly. We can make this one a little bit larger. I think we're going to need some more room for this. So let's go down to say 90. All right, I'm going to format those cells, and I'm just going to bring it up. What I'm going to use is blue color all the way down here, and just that's going to be enough. That'll cover our dashboard. We'll give it a little bit larger dashboard here, so we've got it covered. Okay, I'm going to format those cells again. All right, now that we've got our basics, what I want to do is I want to enter some shapes, and I want to basically have a single click. So as we click on each item here, the rows show and hide accordingly. So let's give it a title. Of course, we need a title on our application, and we also need some icons. So let's going to call this Vehicle Expense Tracker. Okay, and then I'll just merge and center that, give it a font, increase the font up, and then I'll just use a specific font that I like. Okay, so we've got our vehicle expense tracker, and let's put in some icons and some buttons now so we can build this out and see just how we're going to do that. So I'm going to insert some pictures, and what pictures do I want? I've got some pictures here saved up for this one, so let's bring them all in just for this application. So I'm going to bring in everything but the cars. We're going to add the cars in a little bit later on. That's per particular car. We're going to be allowed to show car pictures. Okay, good. Now I'm just going to bring those heights down to something a little bit more manageable. All right, good. So we have this. We're going to use this for our buttons. I want to be able to add vehicles. We're going to use this also. And I want to use these for our reminders. This is for our buttons. So I'll start separating these here so we know exactly what we want to put in. I want to be able to add vehicles. I want to be able to show a dashboard. I want to show reminders. So this is going to be a very comprehensive application. So I can't wait to show it to you and bring it to life right in front of you. I'm going to use this for our vehicles, and I'm going to use this for our main logo here just so we can see that. That's nice. Give it not too much because I want to save room for our buttons. Now I want to create a background for the button. Okay, so let's do just that. What I'll do is I'm going to insert basically a square shape is what I want for our backgrounds, and something like this, and I'll keep it about point. Let's see, let's point some more, and then make it a little bit bigger, 0.94. Okay, so we have that. Let's give it a color that's a little bit different, something like that. Perfect. So that's what I want. I want to duplicate. I'm going to have about 6 buttons just that shape. So let's duplicate that 6 different times and we'll bring them side. And I want to actually, let's change the border on that. I want a border consistent with our theme here. So I'm going to right click, format the object, and we'll give it a border of, let's see, a line color, solid line. I'm going to use the same color here. Okay, that'll be good. That's exactly what I want. And let's duplicate it. We want one more button. And so basically what I want to do is I want to put these icons on top of these buttons and use these buttons to control the tab. You can do this in your application as well. So we're going to have 6 of them different total, and I want them to line up here according to the columns. Just put them up here, line them up all the way. So okay, so now we've got our buttons here, and then on top of these things I'm going to put the card, the maintenance, then I'm going to put probably the fuel because I want to know the fuel, and then I want to put reminders, and then the last thing is the reports, and then I think this one we don't use. I don't like that one. Okay, so then I've got that there. Now let's size these accordingly. I'm going to hold down the control. I want to bring them to the front, so I'm going to do format, bring forward, and then bring to the front, and then I'm going to align them. Let's give them bigger, 0.6, and that's pretty good right there. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to bring them basically on top of these buttons just like this, nice and big and nice and clear so we can see them accordingly. Okay, I like that. And now all we need to do is center them. So I'm going to hold down the control, and I've got my shortcuts here, center and center. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, and then I'm going to group them, right? So they're centered, and then they're going to act as tab buttons. It's going to be really cool. So when we select these, it's going to open up those individual tabs accordingly. So all we need to do is, again, make sure they're centered, and then we'll group them. So I hold down the control, move, and now we can group them. Normally we'll name them. I'm just going to group them now so that way they stay together, and then I'm going to group them one more time into a single menu here. So just using my shortcuts here, you can put your own shortcuts at the top. Things that you use often should always be at the top here, and that's what I tried to do here. All right, it looks good. We're all grouped together now. And now all we need to do is just line them up, and I'd like to line them up according to these columns, and I'm going to bring them down, but I want to make sure that they're aligned to these columns. That looks good right there, so I'll just bring it down, and then I'm going to align them together just like that, and then I'll do the same thing because that way they're nice and tight and all aligned together. And I'll show you why we're going to align them to the columns. I think it's very important as we align them accordingly because we want the column. I'm going to use a conditional formatting to show which one's open. It's a really cool effect, and basically we're going to use the row below and conditional formatting. It's going to show us which tab is open, so I think it's going to be really helpful. Something very unique too as well to our training here. That's why I'm lining them up according to the columns. You notice how J is exactly aligned to this column, and I'm going to double check them and align them, and I'll show you a trick to do that. So basically when we want to line up, I want to line this column up exactly as it is. This looks good. You see how they were lined up perfectly? Perfect here. Okay, we're good. So that's exactly what I want. Now once I have all this, again, I'm going to hold down my control and group. And the second thing, the first thing you want to do is group. Second most important thing, especially when you have sizing, size and properties, and always go into the properties and move but don't size. That way, if the columns move, these shapes don't move. So now I'm also going to raise it up, and I want it exactly aligned to this, right? See this row here? I want it aligned. Why is that? Because I'm going to use conditional formatting here, here, and here to show which tab. So notice it's a little bit too high. I want to bring it down right on the border there, right there. So that way, if we have a border here, it's going to line up accordingly. Right? So I want to know which tab was open. As we click these, if we click this, vehicles is going to show up. If we click this, repairs and maintenance is going to show up. And so on and so forth for all 6 different tabs. And conditional formatting is going to help us do that. So we're going to be able to understand how that works through conditional formatting. So let's get into that and let's show how we get this tab, and let's make this functioning before we add in our buttons. We'll keep these up here. We're going to add in some buttons very, very soon. All right, so how do we apply that conditional formatting? Well, the first thing I want to know is what selected tab should be open. And let's just put that here. We'll call it selected tab. And then I'm just going to put, let's say 5, right? It's going to be 5, 6, 7, or 8. It's based on the column. E would be 5 based on the column equals column, right? So you see that's 5. The next one's 6 and so on. So when this turns 5, what do I want to happen? I want to give it a special effect. What kind of effect? Let's highlight all of the cells in which we want to apply the conditional formatting, manage rules, and then create a new rule. And I'm going to go into format, and I'm going to use a formula, I should say, and I'm going to use a formula equals column. What column is this? Actually equals B3 is equal to what? Column, right? Column is the one we want to focus on. Now, what is the format? What I want to do is I want to blend the bottom of the button here with the top of the cell. So I'm going to give it a format. I'm going to give it a fill and a fill effects. Now, the bottom of the button's probably about this gray here. I think it is. I'll double check it. About this gray here. And then the bottom, of course, is the background of the cell. So I want to give it that blend like that, but I also want to give it a border. I want to give it the border that same blue on the left and the right, and I want to make sure the bottom on the border is no longer there, right? I want to hide that bottom on the border. So something like this. Let's take a look at that and see how we do it. That's pretty much what I want. The button's a little bit high. I'm going to bring that down just a little bit like that. That's what I want. That's the effect what I want, right? So when this changes to 6, you see how it changes? That's what I want. So it ties it in. You see how that tab works really nicely as we change it? That's exactly what I want. So as we click on the tab, it's going to give us that nice blend effect. It blends from the button into the background and it gives it a nice look. And notice how all the borders are the same. They're all lined up. That's why we wanted to line up the buttons with the borders. You see how that works, right? So as soon as we hit 9, it's going to load in that button, and the last one 10. So double check that they're all working. That's the effect that I want. Perfect. Okay, so we have that, and we'll have to adjust it accordingly. I'm going to have to remove this border down the line just so we can see. But that's a nice effect. I'm going to do the same thing here with the cars. When we select a car, I'm going to want to know. So let's give these a specific border. I'm going to give this one, and we're going to be able to add cars, add pictures. It's going to be really cool. So we're going to give this a fill effect. We'll use the same fill effect that we do, the same theme as what we're working on here, which is this blue in this case, and we'll reduce that. And I want to do the same thing for cars, but basically what I'm going to do is, let's say we have about up to 10 different cars. So I'm going to format these. I'm going to give it the standard format of fill effects, and I'll do vertical this time. I'm going to use the same colors, but I'm going to do a vertical. So I'm going to do something like this, and then we'll do light to dark the rest. Now there's going to be conditional formatting. So when I select a car here, I want the reverse to go in. So let's actually create some borders around those. Again, it's just like formatting the cells, and just more colors. I'm going to go into the border and then use this same border all the way around here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do conditional format. It's going to give it that effect. So we also have to know what the car row is, the selected car row. We'll put that in 6. Selected car. When we select a car, I want those details of that car to show up right here. So when I select a car, I'm going to need to know. So let's just say we choose 6, right? And when we choose 6, I want conditional formatting to apply to these again. So let's do that. Let's highlight all the rows, go into conditional formatting, and we'll create a new rule. And this time we're going to use row. So this is going to be equal B6 row, and then open and close parentheses. Format. What is the format? Again, I'm looking for some kind of a blend. So I want to go to the fill effects. I'm going to use this medium to this light, and I want this to blend vertically into the background. So I'm going to use this. Remember, the right one, the lightest one, is our background color. So when we do that, we get that effect. But there's one other thing. I want that border on the right to be gone. So let's go back into the conditional formatting, just like the border's gone up here. Edit the rule, format, go into the borders, and remove this border here. Now when we click OK and click OK, now we want, that's what I want. So when it changes to car 2, it changes. Perfect. So as we select on a specific car, it's going to change. Let's add some fields. What do we want to know about our car? Well, I want to know the car name, and then we want to know the plate number, right? The license plate number. We'll need that. That's probably important. I also want the make and maybe the model. And we want to know the type of the car, because that might here, and seats if we're running some kind of a company, that might help us. And then maybe some notes down here. Okay, that's basically what I want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these. I'm going to right justify them, and then give them, I think we'll go without the border. And then what I want to do is just hold down the control, and then we'll even with the notes, and I'll increase that notes field. That should be much bigger. And then format those cells. And then we'll do the same border color as we have. This is going to give us a nice clean look all the way around it. And that's fine. That's good enough. And the notes I want big, something like that. So emergence center, left and upper, and then we'll format the cells. Make sure those borders are all set just as we wanted them. Okay, that's going to fill out our thing, but I do want to also I do also want a picture on that. So let's set some room for a picture because it's nice to have a vehicle picture. So I'm going to merge and center this and call this vehicle picture. And actually I can use the same formatting. So we're going to format those cells, the same colors that we do. So just that fill effects, and we're going to go into that same blue just so we have the same theme colors. It's same as the vehicle list up there. I want to use the same type of font. So good. So let's control these, make sure they're centered both, and then bold. All right, good. That's going to give us that, and then give it a border around here. And I want to make sure we give it all the way around. Format the cells, and I'll put a button set down below. So give it a border here, all the way around, and that's good. And now I want a button set. Probably I'm going to put the picture in here, and so I want the button set down here. So let's again format those cells. Put a border around this also. All right, so what kind of button? So I want to be able to add a picture and clear a picture. We can use this same button set. Now I'm going to control C and control V because I want it outside. If it's control D, it's going to be inside, okay? Inside the group, meaning control D will keep it inside the group, control C and V outside the group. So I'm going to put one, this is going to be our add a picture, and then I'm going to control D again, and I want to be able to clear the picture using these two buttons here. All right, that looks good. I'll just size them accordingly so that they don't overlap. And it should be fine the way it is. All right, so we're gonna have add. Let's write in add picture, and then I'll give it a format. Let's see, format in the both center and then right and then middle there. That's what I want. And bold, and give it a nice, let me give it a little bit of a more clear. All right, good. So we have that, and then I'm just gonna call this clear. Now what we do is we need to add the icon. So I'm gonna put this icon here, and I'm going to bring it to the front. Of course, we need it in front. And then I'll do the same thing with this. Also need to bring that to the front too. And this is going to be called add picture. Okay, I like that. It's nice and big buttons, nice and clear, and looks good. So we have that, and let's just center everything, holding down the control, holding down, make sure everything's nice and in the middle, aligned, middle here. That's going to bring everything, and then we'll group. So I'm going to group these. And then I'm going to group this. Then we'll assign macros. That's going to help us add a picture to the car. Each individual car is going to have a different picture. So it's going to be very helpful. Okay, I like the way that looks. Let's save what we've done. And then I'm going to left justify all of these here. Left justify. And again, this one's left and upper. All right, it looks good. Now our vehicles is clearing out. So also what I have here is some data. I have a vehicle list that's going to help us move things forward. I have an expense list with some data, already some data in here, some expense types. A fuel log, that's going to be helpful. I've got some reminders here already set up for us, and I also have some meter tracking, just some data. So that's all the data that's going to help us bring this application to life. And I've also got some named ranges set up for us all automatically to help move things along because these trainings are long. Let's take a look at some of the names. So I've got a dynamic field for vehicles. Let's take a look at this. It's using offset, and it's called vehicles, and that's going to cover all of our vehicle lists. As this grows, it's going to grow as well. Now remember, you want to use your header row A3 and then move one row down. Why do we want to use A3? Because when there's no data, it will not return an error. So keep that in mind. Use the header rows in your named range, but make sure you don't include that when you're counting, or don't starting from that really. So when you tab out and tab back in, you'll see that the dancing ants cover the data. Okay, so I've got that. What other named ranges while we're in there? So I've got expense amount. That's going to track all of our expense amount. I've got expense date. That's going to track all of our expense date. Expense type and expense vehicle. Again, all tracking in our expenses because we want to know what all the vehicles, what all the dates, the amounts, and all of our expenses. So those use the same offset named range. Of course, you can download it and take a look at it, but I've been at it a few times before, so I want to make sure these trainings are each unique for you. We have expense types, which I'm going to get to. I'm going to put those in. I didn't add those in, but I'm going to add them in between A19 and A25. Let's do that now. A19, let's put some expense types in there so we can, I have an expense list, so let's just drop down 16 and we'll call this our expense type. I'm going to copy these, go into visible, and I'm going to right click and paste those in here. So now when we go into name manager and we go into expense type, we see we have our dancing ants, and it's an offset, so we can add more expense types to that. If we want, we can add more. So we got oils, tires, repairs. Okay, good. So we have a list of just some expense types going to help us. You can add to that. But this is name of the car. So what else do we want to create? We want to create repairs and expenses. So we also want to create these tabs. So let's get these tabs built out so that we can then build out our intersections using the tabs. How do we do that? Well, we write a macro. What I want to do is when I click here, right, this is going to change to 5, right? When I click here, this is going to change to 5, and I want this to display. And what else? I want, when I click here, I want this to display. But let's get our buttons in so we can get all this built in so we know exactly what we're doing. What do I want with repairs and expenses? Well, I want to track the repairs and expenses. I think it's really important that we track. Well, first we need to know what car we're tracking, so that's really important. So in F19, we're going to track the car. Let's again call it vehicle. And then I want the vehicle here, and then I want the date. What is the date of the expense? And then next up, I want the amount. What is the amount of the expense? That's very important. I also want the expense type. Remember, we have expense types here, so we need to know the expense type. And we need to know the vendor. If there's a company that we purchased it from, that's also important. Okay, so we have those. Let's hold down the control, right justify those here. And then what we'll do is I'll just put in the fields, some white fields with the border. In fact, I can just copy this here, hold the control, and just paste it right down here. Okay, good. And of course, the vendors, I'm going to merge instead of that. I want a larger field for that. And then also, again, let's put in some notes for the expense. It's always nice to have notes. So merge and center that here. I'm going to create a larger field all the way down to 28. Merge and center that, color it white, give it some borders. We can also set the borders here, our color that we're using commonly. So I'll set that, and then we can just return our borders here and then here. Okay, so that's going to be helpful now that we have the notes. Again, right justify this here. So we have all this information that's going to really help us determine. But what about the vehicle? We're going to use the dynamic. We're going to use the data validation for that. So let's create that because I want to select from a list of vehicles. And what are those vehicles? It's going to be equal to vehicles. And then just enter that. So now we have a drop-down list of vehicles. And these vehicles, actually what I really want to do is I want to link these vehicles to this vehicle list. So how do we do that? I'm just going to copy 10 of them. Control C, I'm going to copy those, and I'm going to paste the link. So that way, when the vehicle name changes, so does it here. So in this list, as we click this list, we want the vehicle information in the picture to show up here. So it's going to be multi-tab. We have vertical and horizontal. Really cool, really different. Let's create some buttons, some more buttons. What we want to do is we want to be able to add that vehicle, right? And we want to be able to save that vehicle. So that's really important. So let's click on here. I'm going to use this one also here. I'm going to copy this a little bit smaller than this. I want to add a vehicle, and I want to also save a vehicle. So let's put that point to, just call it point 2. So we have our button here, and I'm going to copy this button here, but I want to make it a little bit smaller. Again, I'm using Control C, so it's outside the group. And I'm going to format that. Let's put the height down at 0.25. That's a little bit more picture. And we'll call this Add Vehicle. I'm going to keep it real simple, and I'm going to duplicate this, and we're going to call it Save Vehicle. So all we're doing is either adding or saving. Pretty simple. We'll add up to 10. And I'll add this to the add, and then this is going to be to the save. And then I'll move these two buttons, click on both, and then move them to the back, all the way to the back, and that's going to bring those icons up to the top. That's what I want. Okay, perfect. So we got the ability to save and save vehicle and add vehicle. These two buttons are not going to show up at the same time. So we can put them right on top of each other. I'm going to line the middle. I'm going to group them, and then we're going to call it Save Vehicle Button. And then another one, we're going to call this Add Vehicle Button. Again, I'm going to center. You can use this, group them, and call this Add Vehicle Button. Okay, so we have those. We're going to be able to add and save them with these buttons. And I'm going to hold the control again on these two groups here. And then I want to make sure they're both aligned in the middle and both aligned in the center. Bring it over here, probably something up to the left. That's what I want here. That's nice. So this is nice. But what I want to do is I also want to make sure that these buttons are all grouped all together. In other words, when I click another one, I want to make sure that these buttons don't get messed up. So when I click on any other tab, I want these buttons to be hidden. So we have to do that. We want to make sure we do that. To do that, let's group them. So we're going to call this, I'm going to call this vehicle group, because we know it's a vehicle group. And so that way they get hidden. And we'll do the same thing for each of the other tabs. What do I want? I want these repairs and maintenance. I'm going to copy this icon, and I'm going to put it right here. I want that to notes, repairs, and icons. I'm going to do the same thing for each one of those. Copy the fuel and put it right here. We're going to be adding some fields for the fuel. For the reminders as well, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to put that right down here. And then 2 more, of course, we want to have the meter tracking all the way down here under the meter. And then the last thing, I want the dashboards here. So we're going to create a really nice little dashboard here. Just a small one. It's only going to show one, but you can expand yours because this is going to be a long enough video as it is. Okay, so we get to see we have those. And so let's do that. Let's get this up and running. Let's get these tabs up, and let's get these fields. We got a few more fields that I want to add in. I also want to know the vehicle, and let's just copy what we've done here and copy that down here and then just make some changes accordingly. Okay, so in this case we have fuel. We also have date on this one. I also want the amount, but this time let's call this unit, right? I want to know the unit of fuel. Is it gallons, liters, whatever it is. So I think that's kind of nice. Quantity, and this is quantity, how many gallons, how many liters, how many, so we don't need this merged and centered. Let's bring this down here. And what else do we want to know? I want to know the station. It's like the vendor, like gas station, right? Where did they purchase their fuel? I'm going to copy this and then just paste the formats in here so we can see the formats. Okay, so we've got that. That's good. I like that. I'm going to do the same thing here. Just copy that. All right, so now we have notes. That's pretty much it for fuel, but I do need to add a button. I want to know if we're going to save the fuel. We'll just add a fuel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this button here. I'm going to bring it down here, and then I'm just going to change the text to fuel. Much easier to just create a button here. And then let's see, I can make this a little bit shorter, so we can go into the format and make this about 1 inch. I like that. Okay, what else? I'll also want to do a reminder, right? We got to save a reminder. I'm going to copy this, and now we got to add some reminders in. What do we want for the reminders? Well, for the reminders, I also want a table down at the bottom too. So again, we need to know the vehicle, and let's make a copy of this, just these fields here. Paste them right in here. Bring this button up a little bit. So in this case, I want to know the car, but I also want to know what's the name of the reminder. Name of the reminder is very, very important. And I also want to know the next date, right? We have to put in the next date because we have to know when that reminder should go off. I also want to know what the frequency is. So let's put in every something days. Okay, so we want days, and I'm going to make this on the left, right? Because this, and then this field, this is not going to be a field. We'll just clear that out. We can do that by just bringing this down here. The last thing is I want to know the status. Is it active or inactive, right? That way we can make them reminders inactive if we want to. Lastly, what I really want to do is I want to have a table down here. I want to know exactly all the recent. So let's put a table down here, all the way down maybe to row 59. And I'd like to have, let's just put a table in here. And again, we'll put in some conditional formatting. So what's the first thing I want? I want to know the vehicle, where the reminder is. I want to know the name of the reminder, next date, frequency, and the status, and next up the last date. So that's all the information that I want to know on those reminders. And let's just format those. We'll center it. Again, let's go ahead and format those cells so we can get the nice look on what we want. Fill using the same fill consistency that we had before. And good. All right, so we have that covered, and let's go ahead and give it some borders on that as well. Same color you're using automatically that we have in the past. All right, that's not going to make it too beautiful. And then some conditional formatting and some borders on here, and we're good to go on that table. Okay, so we're good on that, and let's go ahead and add some conditional formatting just to give it some odd or even row look. So we'll create a new rule and use a formula, and then equals mod, and I've got this automated here, so it's in my auto hotkey. Fill it up. I'll use this color, but maybe a little bit more lighter than that. Okay, so now we've got it, and now I'm just going to add some internal lines here, maybe some dotted, just so we can separate the fields. Then we have our table built out. Sorry, format cells is off the dotted line here, but okay, so you see how we can build out these tables really quickly. That's it. That's for the reminder, and let's just change this. Obviously, this is not a field, but we want to change this to reminder, and make that button a little bit bigger here, and let's just go to 1.3. Okay, that's good. So saving the reminder, what else do we need? Well, I also need to know the meter tracking. So let's do that here. And again, same thing. We're going to be able to keeping consistent with our theme. I'll call this save meter tracking. Down here, meter tracking We want to be able to save the tracking because we have all that in different tables. Okay, so we have all that in different tables, and let's extend that 1.5. Okay, that's not big enough, 1.7. All right, I like that. What do we want to know for the meter tracking? Again, we want to know basically the same information. So let's just copy this because we can use similar fields and then bring it right down here. And so again, we want to know the vehicle. Let's put in the type. I want to know the type of tracking and the date. Again, the date of our reading. And also I want to know what is the reading? You know, what is the number? Like usually it's a mileage or a kilometer or something. We want to keep track of that. All right, good. And then again, notes field, let's copy the notes that we have up here and then bring them down here. All right, so we have notes and meter tracking. We're going to save the meter tracking. Lastly, I want a dashboard here. We'll fill that out. That'll be last because we have some information. But what do we want there? I want to know, again, some information when we have the dashboard. I want to know what car I want to display. So let's put that information right here. I'm going to paste that in. Again, we want to know the car, but I want to know the dates. From, what do we want to show? From to, right? To. So from a specific date to a specific date. Okay. All right. It looks like we've got everything built up just the way we want it. I've got our border here. Let's update that so everything's consistent. Now we're ready. So now we get a nice idea of all of the information that we want to. Now all we need to do before we enter tab is just make sure that our groups are set. What do I mean by groups? Our groups of shapes. Like I want these shapes to be here. We have to save the repairs and expense. So let's need a button for that. Let's use a larger button. And let's call this just save expense here. Bring this down here. Expense. Okay, so we have save expense. And so what I mean by grouping is I want to take this and this and I want to group them together. And then what I want to make sure is I want to make sure we give it a very specific name. So let's do that. Let's call that repair group. So that way we can hide that group accordingly. And remember, every time I'll select all these groups and make sure they're not. The next one I want to call this fuel group. So I'm going to select all those, group them, fuel group. And then again, same thing with each one. So we can call this reminder group. And I also want to do the meter group. So again, so that way we have everything grouped properly. And we'll call this meter group. Meter group. Okay, lastly, of course, we also need to have the dashboard group, and that's just this one here. So we'll just call this dashboard group. What I want to do is I want to hold the control down and I want to scroll up. And I want to select each group that we just created and make sure they're set to move but not size. Move but not size. Just selecting them all, everything that we have, all those groups here, including this one, just in case. Right click, format, and make sure we go into the properties and move but don't size. That's going to make sure that they don't move. Okay, we also need another one for reminder. I just remembered we have one for reminders. What do I need to do? I want to check the reminders. So let's build that group out. This icon, of course, is point 2. So we're going to do the same thing with this, point 2 and point 2. So I'm going to check for reminders. So this time I'm going to duplicate a D, and that's going to keep it in the same group. But of course, I still have to add this icon. In this case, I want to call check reminders. Okay, and then bring it up here, and then what I'll do is I'll bring this on top here, bring this button a little bit larger, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to group everything together. So the best way to group is just hold the group, copy the group name, Control C, ungroup it using the control again, group whatever else you want to add to it, and then regroup it again like this, and then just paste in that name again. There, now it's been added to the group, and all we need to do is bring this to the front, bring to the front. All right, now it's brought to the front, and then we'll increase this button. Okay, so now we can check for reminders. Now we can set the reminders, we can save it. It's going to be really good. Okay, we've got all that. Move it a little bit over there, and then right justify. Okay, I like the way that that looks. Now let's move on. So now we have our group set. Now we're ready to put in our tabs. Now we're ready to program these tabs. It's looking really good. Let's zoom out a little bit, bring this up. So basically what I do is when I click this, I want to display 4 through 16. When I click the maintenance and repairs and expenses, I should say, I want to display this and hide everything else, and so on and so forth. So how do we do that? Well, we do that, of course, in a macro. So let's get into that and show you just how we do that. Into the developers and Visual Basic. And I've got just some modules that I created here called top tabs. Just there's empty, but that's going to help us move things a little bit quicker. So the first thing I want to do is I want to write a macro to hide all. I think that's really important because one macro will hide everything, and then individual macros will show just what we want. So let's do that first. Sub hide all. And what do I want to do? The first thing I want to do with sheet 1, I want to basically hide information. Now there's going to be added a vehicle picture. Okay, so basically when we add a picture, I want to bring in a picture. For example, let's just say we have a vehicle picture like this one right here. I want to place that right here and size it accordingly. We'll do that with a macro. But basically I want to hide that picture too. I don't want that picture to show as well. So actually what we can do is delete it, and then we can show it up every time we can. So this is going to be called, we're going to give it the same name all the time. And it's going to be called vehicle picture. So vehicle pick, and VBA will do the naming of that automatically. So that's what we're going to have, and so we want to make sure that that also is hidden too, or at least hidden also. So let's go ahead and write that with sheet 1. First thing I want to do is dot shapes vehicle pick dot visible equals MSO false. So we're going to hide that picture. But what if it's not, doesn't exist? If the user hasn't added, it could create an error. So let's wrap that in on air resume next, and then on air go to 0. Okay, so that's going to help us automate that. What else do I want to do? I want to hide the vehicle group too. So let's copy this and just change the name, because there's the vehicle group. We're going to double check those names to make sure vehicle group, that's what I think it's called. Let's double check that to make sure that we have the right names. Bring this down a little bit, click on our vehicle group and check the name, and we have here it's vehicle group. That's exactly what I want. Also, we have different add vehicle buttons, and we want that. So vehicle group we want to hide. I want to hide this button, the add and the save too. So let's do that. So again, with shapes, dot shapes, add vehicle group. I want that hidden equals MSO false. And what else? We also want the save one. So let's copy this and write in save, right? Because the save vehicle, that's another one. So save vehicle, that's the one behind it, right? We want to hide that one. I want to hide everything no matter what, and then we'll display it accordingly. So save vehicle, we will also want that. Okay, so we have that. So we're going to hide those, and of course these two buttons are part of our group, so we don't need to worry about that. What else do we want to hide? Well, I want to hide all the other groups as well. What are they? Well, they are repairs group, right? Repair group, I think we call this repair. This group, we want to hide those shapes. That's important. So again, all we need to do is copy this and just change the name to repair. So Control C and then VM, call this repair, repair. We see we can see it up there, so it's nice to have both of those at the same time. And then again, same thing. These are kind of self-explanatory. So again, fuel as well. So we want to do fuel, and we also want to do reminders group. Okay, so we'll change this to fuel, and then the next one to reminders group. Okay, so that way we're going to hide those groups accordingly. We're going to hide everything, and then we're going to even hide the rows too, reminders. And what else? We also want the dashboard. I think we have one for dashboard, and we have meter tracking too. So meter tracking, we're calling that meter group. So, and then dashboard. So let's change this to meter, and then the last one to dashboard. So we can get all those hidden accordingly, and then we'll show them as the user selects the individual tabs. Dashboard group false. The last one, the dashboard is just a single icon. Okay, so we have everything hidden, but what about the rows? I want to hide all the way from 89 to all the way up to 4. I want to hide everything, right? 89 to 4. So let's do that right now. Dot range, we're already in sheet 1, dot range 4 and quotation, colon quotation, and 89. What are we doing? Hiding the entire row. Dot entire row dot hidden equals false. Okay, so we're going to hide everything. That's important. All right, so when we do that, it's going to hide everything. And that's fine. That's what I want to do, but obviously we need to show one, we need to show a single one. So let's write in the other macros that's going to actually show. Those are much easier. So what do I want to do? The first thing I want to do, of course, is our first one. We'll call that vehicle. So let's call it sub tab vehicle. That is our first tab that we want to display. And how do we do that? Well, again, let's make sure we first run the macro called hide all. We want to run that macro all the time. And then what we want to do is I want to display certain information. But not only do we want to display, we need to set the tab, right? I need to set this to 5. This would be 6, 7. So let's first set B3 to 5. Again, with sheet 1, we want to set B3 dot range B3 equal to 5. And then all we need to do is pretty much copy and paste this macro into the others, and it'll be almost the same, except for a few minor changes. Okay, so first thing we want to do, then what we want to do is I want to display the rows accordingly. Again, so how do we do that? Dot range. What rows? 4 through what was 16. I want to show 4 through 16. Display that. Make sure those are now hidden. So 4 through and quotation colon quotation and 16 dot entire row dot hidden equals false. Okay, false. I want to make sure that that's not hidden, right? This should be true. Hidden equals true. Okay, obviously we're hiding it. Okay, this one's false, right? It's no longer hidden. What next? Now I want to display those groups and shapes, right? What did we need to say? Well, in case if this is, I'll actually write a macro to show that, but I want to display the vehicle group and I want to display these 2 buttons. So we just have to copy and paste the ones that we created here, vehicle group, save, and make sure those are MSO true. So paste those in here, and that's going to be C true. So those are going to be true. Now we want to make those visible. So we just copy that, paste it in here, paste it in here. Okay, so now we have that visible. So what else do we want to do? Probably what I want to do is application screen updating. That's going to make less flicker. So application dot screen updating equals false. That helps remove the flicker, or reduce it, I should say. And then at the end, we'll just make sure to set it to true. Application screen updating equals true. Okay, so let's run that. Now this macro I want to assign to this first button. So this one I want to assign it to the car, and I want to hold down the control and click the button behind it. Then I'm going to right click, assign the macro, and then I'm going to paste it in tab vehicle. So now when I click that, let's fix this name, add vehicle group. That's going to be add vehicle button, right? It's just a button, not a group. Button. And the same thing here, save vehicle button. Right, misspell those. Those are just buttons, not groups. And then the same thing up here, want to update that. Add vehicle button. And then save, those are just buttons. Okay, so let's reset that. Reminder, I think there's no S on that. Okay, and reset that. Okay, good. Now we've got our name. So now when I click that, it shows only that and hides everything else. All right, very good. Let's get this spelled right here. All right, so we have that now. We've got the first one working. Now the rest is super simple to add. So let's go ahead and add. I'll get all those tabs functioning here. Let's extend this down a little bit so we can make it very nice. Okay, so let's move in and get those other tabs. All we need to do is really copy and paste. I'll bring this back over here. And so what do we want to do? We just want to build out the rest of the tabs. So what are those tabs? So the first one, we want to know expenses. So the next one's going to be repairs. So we just have to change that to repairs. So we just have to change that to repairs. And then in this case, it's going to be column 6. So we're going to change that to 6. This is going to be 17 through, and I believe it's going to be 29. Let's double check that to make sure that we're on 17. So we'll unhide these. And then we'll go down here. We want to unhide 17 through 29. So that's perfect. And then I want to make sure that instead of the vehicle group, this is going to be called repair group. Repair. We want to display that, and then we don't need these buttons. In fact, on this one we want to add, only want to show the saved when we're actually adding one. So we can keep saved vehicle false until we actually add one. All right, next up, what I want to do is we got the repair group, we're showing the display. Let's take a look at this and make sure that let's take a look at the group name, and that looks good. So we'll just now click on here, hold down the control, assign it to the macro, and then the macro is going to be the tab repairs. Click on that, and now click on that, and it looks very good. We just need to update the conditional formatting here. In fact, what I want to do is I want to assign this conditional formatting. So what I'm going to right click, format the cells, and hide reset this up and down, and just like that it's going to work perfectly. You see how we reset that lower border? All I did was right click, format the cells. It would look like it was on, turn it on and off, and that's all we have to do, and that sets the border just right. So now we have cars, now we have repairs and expenses. Now all we need to do is add the fuel. Very, very simple here. So all we need to do, again, copy and paste most of it and just make the accordingly updates. So paste it down here. We'll call that sub tab fuel. This is going to change from 7. This is going to change from 30 to 42, 30 to 42. And then of course this is going to change to fuel group. That's it. That's all we have to do. So once we add in all this, really, really simple. Once we start adding in the first one, and then it's just copy and paste. So then again, holding down the control, selecting on both the back and the front icon, assigning the macro, fuel, click OK. And then click the fuel, and now we have the fuel purchases. All right, the next thing we want to do for reminders, same thing. All we need to do, again, copy this. Reminders is a little bit larger of it, right? So it's not 13. We're going to change this to 8. Change the macro name to tab reminders. And then, of course, the button going to be changed to reminder. And let's just double check on how many cells, how many rows that is. Reminder group. How many do we want? Let's unhide our rows. Clicking unhide, click down. Now we're gonna, in this case, we're going to be unhiding from 43 to 60. So let's just change that from 43 to 60. And then we're going to run that. Let's just take a look. Again, assign that macro here. Clicking on that again, not that one. Clicking on that, right click, assign a macro. And then that's going to be reminders. Okay, let's click on that. Looking good. Also check reminders. I updated that button. Just wanted to make sure we had, now it's check reminders and the icon there. I just changed that out. Okay, so that looks good. That's just what I want to see for that. Perfect. What next? Okay, we just have 2 more to do, and then we'll round out this specific header. Tab reminders. Again, what we're going to do, copy and paste that, change this to 9 in this case, right? We have 7, 8, 9. And this time we're calling this meter, and then of course meter group. And of course we're updating the rows. We're going to change that. This one's going to be 61 through 73. 61 through 73. We can write the next one too while we're at it. The last one's going to be the dashboard. So let's write that up. Copy that. Again, paste that. We're going to call this tab meter dashboard now. And take a look. This one's going to be 10. And then we're going to update that one to dashboard group. Perfect. Now we can assign those last 2. So let's take a look at that. Right click, format the cells, assign the macro, tab it over. We're calling this meter. Click OK. And then the last one, dashboard. Right click, format, assign the macro, and then dashboard. Okay, now we have our dashboard. That looks good. We have our meter tracking. That looks good. Our reminders. That looks good. Everything's showing up. The only thing I don't like sometimes is I see how the cursor's here. I want to select, like when I click this, I want to select this tab. When I select this, I want to select inside the vehicle. So let's do that now. Let's add the selection right inside. So the first one would be F6 onto that. So all we need to do is go up here and then just say dot range F6 and then add select onto that. Dot select. Okay, so I'm going to add the same thing, but I'm just going to change the range on each one of them. So, and then this one, what would it be for this one? I'm going to make this one F19. So let's update that to F19 for the repairs. And then on the fuel, we also want the same thing, but different cell. So let's take a look at that. That way it selects the first one, and it's kind of a nice thing. This one, of course, would be F32. So we'll change that to F32. And I believe this is going to be a 2-part training series because we're going really long on this. This one's going to be F45 on the reminders. So let's write that in here. and then change that to 45. That's going to be the first column. And what else do we have here? We have also meter tracking. That one's going to be F63. So on the meter, we just have to put it in F63. So that's exactly how we get to that. What up is next? Let's take a look. And the dashboards, we're going to again change that to F60. And then on the dashboards, oh, we have to update that. Let's make sure we update that to the right group. Meter, okay. And then this one, let's see, F meter, of course, is going to be F63. Perfect. And then the last one, we need to change this. Of course, we need to update this to 74 through 89. That's going to make sure we update that. That was wrong. And also, I want to paste in this case, we are going to be F76, I believe. 76, somewhere around there. Okay, so let's take a look at that. The dashboard's now F76. That's exactly where I want it. F63. Now we have the dashboard showing correctly. All right, excellent. We now have our tab section, our horizontal tab working at the top based on these really great button clicks. So let's get into the ability to add vehicles. We want to add new vehicles, and I also want to select on an existing and load the vehicles. Now I have information for the car number 1 here, and I also have some information up here that's going to help us load that in. This is, of course, if you haven't seen this before, this is data mapping. So in other words, name is located in F6 here, and of course in our plate it's located in H6. So I've mapped it for each field. That's going to help us when we load it. So let's write some macros. So when I select on car, I want that information to load here, including the picture. So how can we do that? Let's write some macros here. So let's go into the vehicle macros, and let's write a macro called vehicle load. I want to load that vehicle. So let's write that in right now. Sub vehicle load. Okay, so now we're with sheet 1 dot range. The first thing I want to do is make F6 the active cell. F6 dot value equals the active cell value. Why is that? Equals the active cell dot value. Why are we doing that? Because when we select on a specific car, if I select on a car, I want to put that car name right here. And basically, when I select on car 1, I want to load that vehicle right in here. I want to load it up, and then once it is loaded up, I can determine the row. How are we going to determine the row? Well, that's going to be relatively easy. All we have to do is use the name range. So let's get that in there now. Let's put it in car database. Let's just call it vehicle database row. What is it going to be equal to? Equals to, if error, in case it doesn't exist, match. What are we matching? I'm going to match whatever is in here, and I'm going to match the lookup array. In this case, it's going to be vehicles, and I want an exact match, so it's going to be 0. And if there's an error, double quotes. So that's going to get us a database row. So as soon as we select a car from the list, it's going to give us the number. But I don't want 1, right? I want the row number, which is in this case is 4. So how do we get to that? We just add 3. So plus 3 is going to do that for us. Okay, let's highlight these cells so we can clearly see which ones. Okay, then I'll left justify it here. Okay, so we know that it's on 4. That's going to help us. This is too bright. It's hurting my eyes. Okay, make it a light color. That's better. All right, so now we understand that as soon as we select a car, we want that row to display here because I need to know what row to pull it over. All right, so let's continue on with our code. So we know that F6 is the active cell, which is going to be the cars are going to go there. So what else do we need to do? I need to make sure that there's actually a row. So if, and a row is located in B4, if B.range B4 dot value equals empty, that means there's an error, then message box, please select a vehicle from the list. Exit sub. Okay, very nice, very nice. That's what I want. And then of course just end if, drop that out, and if. Okay, so that's it. Just in case there's no error, we can't load a particular vehicle if there's no row. Now, assuming that there is a row, now we can put it in terms. So we're going to dimension that. We need both the column and the row. Dimension the vehicle row as long and the vehicle column as long. Okay, so we've got those two variables set. Now we can define it. So our vehicle row we know is in B4. So let's copy this. And we can set the vehicle row equal to, of course, B4. That's the vehicle row. What about the column? The column's dynamic, right? The column is going to be determine our cells. So we're going to run through all the columns. In this case, 1 through 8, we're going to run through all the columns. So let's do that right now. Set that as dynamic. So for vehicle column equals 1 to 8. Next vehicle column. So what do we need to do here? So in order to bring the information from this table into this, we need to determine what cells is going to go in H6, F8, F10, and so on. So we can do that with just one line of code, even for all. So it's going to be dot range. What is the range? That range is located where? In sheet 2 dot cells. It's located in row 1, isn't it? But what about the column? The column is going to be dynamic. Vehicle column dot value. So this value right here is the cell. This is the cell, and that cell changes as we move from column to column. So this is going to equal, what is it? Sheet 2 dot cells is going to equal basically whatever's in the specified row. So now we can set the row, which is the vehicle row dot vehicle column dot value. Perfect. So that's going to set us all up. That's all we need to do to bring in all the information from the existing table into our form. So next up, what I want to do is I also want to have to know if it's going to be a new car or false. So we can do that. Is this a new, let's just call it new vehicle? This is going to be true or false, right? So that's going to help us. So I want to set that to false. And when it loads, it's no longer going to be new. So let's do that. Let's make sure B5 is set to false. Dot range B5 equals false. Okay, set new vehicle to false. Okay, what about next? I also want us to make sure we're having a load. I want to know if it's going to load or not. Car loading. So I'm going to set this to true or false too. If it loads or not, right? When it loads, I want to know the difference between a load, which is going to be changes, or a change that the user is going to make. If they make a change here, I want that kind of change. So that's two different changes. So those two changes need to be differentiated between inside the code, and we can do that when setting a specific cell to true or false. So dot range B7 in this case equals false. Set vehicle load to false. But I also, before that, I want to set it to true. We need to set it to true while it's loading. So let's just set vehicle load. I'm going to copy this, but before it loads, which is right about here, I'm going to set it to true. That way everything stays exactly the same. We do that because we need to differentiate between changes between when a user makes a change and when the code makes a change when they're loading. So that's the difference. So you'll understand that when we come a little bit as we make changes. So also what I want to do is I want to display some buttons. What buttons do I want to display? Well, let's go into the tab macros and copy these two specific buttons. These are the ones that I want to show, the buttons that I want to show when we load a vehicle. What buttons are those? I want to show the add vehicle button, and I want to hide the save vehicle. So let's write that now. So that's all we need to do to load the vehicle. And then of course I want to show the vehicle picture. I want to write a macro that's going to show the vehicle picture. We'll write that in just a bit. Let's make sure we load this correctly. And then also I want to select F6 dot range F6 dot select. Okay, very good. So now when I select on here, that's what I want to happen. So that's going to happen on selection change. When a user selects D6 through D15, I want that change to happen. So let's go and write that in. Under selection change, worksheet, selection change, if not. Okay, so what kind of change are we going to, if we're making a selection between, what is the selection? D6 and D15. D6 through D15. If the user makes a selection, and what else? And I want to make sure there's a value, range D and the target row dot value. I want to make sure it's not blank. It's not equal empty. Then what do I want to do? Then I want to load the vehicle. Then vehicle load. That's it. That's all I need to do. So now when I select here, debug that, let's fix that up. Okay, this should be sheet 2, obviously. We can't have sheet 1. Sheet 2. Okay, let's run that again. Okay, that's perfect. Now we have our information loaded in, and this is going to be our picture link, so we can, that's important. I'll just put, that's already put in inside. You see right here, J13 is our picture link. That's going to come in. So now when we load car 1, perfect. We have to do one more thing. Notice the conditional formatting. I also want to add some conditional formatting. I want the selected car to change to 6, right? So that's important. I want that, put that row in there. So let's do that. Drop this down here and add it, and we say range B6 dot value equals the target row. Perfect, perfect. And then end if. Okay, so now our conditional formatting is going to work. So now we have our conditional formatting. You see how that works? Now as we select a car, it automatically shows up. Okay, so let's get the added. Now that we can load a vehicle, what I want to do is I want to add a vehicle. I want to click this and be able to clear out these fields and add a vehicle. So let's write that in a macro now under our vehicle macro. So what do I want to do? Vehicle sub vehicle add. Again, with sheet 1, I want to first clear out the field. So let me write that in. Let me write all the fields in. Okay, I've just added in all the fields, and we're going to clear those contents. Okay, clear the fields of all the. What else do we want to do? I want to make sure that B5 is now true because it's a new vehicle. Dot range B5 equal to true. New vehicle. What next? I also want to make sure that the button sets, remember these button sets need to be reversed. I want to now hide the add vehicle and I want to display the save. So in this case, this one's going to be false and this one is going to be true. See, true. I want to show the save vehicle button. That's good. What else do I want? I want to, in case there's a car, I want to show the car one if it's available. So on air, resume next. I want to dot shapes. I want to delete any picture. There's a vehicle pick dot delete, right? If we're adding a new car, we want to make sure we're deleting any picture that's there on. There we go to 0. Okay, so that picture would be deleted, right? Because we're going to create a new picture based on the new car. So that's important. That's all we need to do for our vehicle add. So let's do that. Let's add. What else do we want to do? I want to add a picture. I want to browse for a picture and I want to add it. So let's put that in there as well. Let's just call it vehicle add pick. And what do we want to do inside this macro? In this macro, I want to dimension the get file as a file dialog. And what is that? I want to set this get file. We need to get the picture. Let's move this up a little bit so you can see it. And then set the get file equal to the application dot file dialog, right? We're doing a file dialog. And what type of file dialog it is? It is MSO file picker. We're picking a file, so that's important. We want to pick that file. And now with the get file, what do we want to do with it? Well, the first thing I want to do is give it a title. A title. What kind of title? Maybe something like add vehicle picture. And next up, I only want to show pictures. So let's add a filter onto that. So add, what kind of filter would that be? All picture files. And then I want to give it some specific strings. So something like asterisk, that means anything before, wildcard.jpg, just a few on this one so you can see it, comma, and then maybe asterisk dot png, and then maybe gif dot asterisk dot gif. All right, that's enough for now. Okay, so we have that, and then what else do I want? I want the starting position of that. What is that? Starting position would be, in this case, 1 would be the starting position. Okay, what else do we need to add to that? Well, I need to, if the user doesn't select something, so if the user doesn't select anything, just cancels out, we need to write some code for that. So if dot show does not equal -1 is if they select something, then go to no selection. That will skip it. But what if they do select? If they do select something, sheet1.range, again, J13 is the one that I mentioned to you. J13, I want that to show the file. Dot value equals what? Dot selection, selected items 1, first one. Okay, but if there's no, let's write a no selection semicolon. Okay, so then in case that's going to skip it if there's no item selected. Okay, that's all we need. And then what I want to do is I want to, once they add a picture, I want to show the picture. So how do we do that? So we'll just write in a macro called show vehicle, show picture, that's enough. And then I'm going to write a macro to show the picture. Remember, this only browses and allows the user to actually get the picture, but not show the picture. So what if we wanted to show the picture? Let's write a macro for that, sub show the picture. And how would we do that? Very, very simply. So the first thing we want to do when we show the picture is we want to make sure that we delete any picture that might already be there. So we can do that just as we did here up here on load right here. So we want to first delete any picture that exists. So I'm going to copy this and write this down with sheet 1. And then what we're going to do is remove any picture that might already be there. That's the first step. Next up, what I want to do is make sure that J13, which is going to hold our file name, is not empty. We need to make sure that this range is not empty. So if equals empty, then what should we do? Then we just need to exit the sub. There's nothing we can do if there's no file path. Then exit sub. Now we can ready to insert the picture. So dot pictures dot insert. And what are we inserting? We're inserting what's on J13. Whatever's there, that's the file path that we're going to insert. And I want to give it a name too. What is the name? Of course, it's the same name we're using called vehicle picture. Vehicle pic. That's going to insert the name. Now, once we have it, now we can do something. Now I want to position it, size it accordingly. So what do I want to do? With dot shapes. What shapes? Again, that would be the vehicle picture. This shape right here is what we want to, then we're going to focus. Now that we've named it, we can work with it right here. Okay, so with shapes, and then first thing I want to do is lock the aspect ratio. That's important because I don't want it to get skewed. Equals MSO true. I want that locked. And next up, I want to check if the height or width is bigger. I want to see which one's bigger, and we want to display it accordingly. So if dot height is greater than dot width, then what do I want to do? Then I want to set the height to something like maybe about 200 or so, equals 200. Else dot width, I want to set the width maybe to something about 120 because I want to position. Now I want to position it. What do I want to put it? I want to put it right about here. So that would be J7. So let's put that into J7. Let's save our work. And then, okay, so dot left is equal to sheet 1. Now let's move it up a little bit. I'll move it up. I'm going to bring it up. Let's give it a little more space just so we have it. Let's put it into J6. I think that's a little bit better. We have a little bit more space in case it's a vertical. Okay, so sheet 1 dot range J6, and then dot left, but I don't want it to, and then dot left, but I don't want it exactly. Let's move it over a little bit. Let's say plus 20. And then dot top, I also want to give it a top position. Also equal to J6, but this time it's going to be the top position. So I'm going to copy this, bring it down here, and then this is going to be the dot top. Okay. And then the last thing we need to do is make it visible. Dot visible equals MSO true. Okay. That's it. So let's do that. Let's see if there's any errors on that and fix that up if there is, and we can check those. So I'm going to save it, and let's assign that picture. The first thing I want to do is assign it. So I'm going to click on here, hold down the control, assign the macro. That's the one that's going to be the vehicle add pic right here. So now let's click on it, go into our folder, click on a car, click OK, and that's what I want. The car's displayed, so it worked perfectly. All right, now all we need to do is write the clear. Let's write that one, the clear macro, so we can assign that. That'll just clear the code. That's a really easy one. So sub vehicle clear pic. Okay, so what do we want to do in this one? In this one, I just want to delete the picture. So all we need to do again is just go to here, and then we can add in the sheet 1 here, paste in, and then of course sheet 1. And I also want to clear out sheet 13, right? I also want to clear out sheet 1, make sure that J13 is clear too. This one has to be clear. This one right here, we need to clear that out. So no need for that. Sheet 1, and then add in the clear contents because that's where it's stored. Okay. Perfect. So now we can just click on here, right click, and then assign the macro here. And then vehicle clear picture here. Okay, so now when it clears, perfect. It clears, add a picture, add this one, click OK. Nice, that's what I want. And if we don't want this bleed over, we just do a space, and now it's gone. Okay. All right, so now we've got this add vehicle button. Let's assign the macro to this since we've already created it. Actually, we can select on the entire group. It's going to assign it automatically. Go to the assign macro here and then just vehicle add. Okay, let's run that, and that looks good. It clears out our picture, and now let's right click and assign the macro and vehicle save, right? So we don't have that yet. We didn't add that in. So let's create that macro right now. We'll put it in. Let's put it in up right up here. Sub vehicle save. Okay, we're going to save our vehicle, and pretty much it's going to be just basically like the loading, but we're going to copy and paste it, going to change it. So let's copy most of this, and then we'll make the updates. It's going to be a little bit quicker. So we want to save the vehicle, but this time what we're going to be doing is we're going to be reversing this. So that means sheet 2 is going to be taking on the information. So I'm going to drag that over here and also drag the equals, and I'll explain this in a minute. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is when we save it, right, the row, of course, is not existing, so it's going to be a new row. So what is the row? It's going to be sheet 2. So let's do that. SXL sheet 2 auto hotkey types that in for me. A99XLUP plus 1. That's the first available row. First available row on sheet 2. Here's our vehicle list. So in this case, it would be 10. That's our first available row. So when we add it, so let's go over this macro now that I've copied and pasted. The first thing is we want to make sure that when we save it, first thing I want to make sure that we actually have a vehicle name. That's the most important. So let's check that. It's changed this. If F6 value, let's change this to if equals empty, then we can get rid of this. Change this to please add in a vehicle name. We want to make sure that they've added in a vehicle name if F6 is empty. Okay, so the next step, we set the vehicle row. We're going to set the vehicle load, vehicle save. We don't need that anymore. That's not important. We don't need that. We're going to make sure that new vehicle goes to false. That's correct. We want to set the load to false. That's good. The add, we want to make sure that the add button is visible when we save it, and the save button is, that's perfect, and F6. Okay, that's good. So now sheet 2 is going to take on the information that's going to come from here. Everything is good. So let's save that. Now let's assign the macro. Right click, assign the macro, vehicle. Now it's here, save, and we'll make sure that our good, please add a vehicle name. Good, that's what I want. Let's just call this car. We actually have to, what we want to do is we want to make sure this data validation allows us to select. So let's go into the data validation here, because we wanted to make sure that there's no error alert, right? Because we want to put in new cars, new vehicles. So even if it's not in this list, that's okay. So car 7, and then we'll just put in a plate number, and then make, let's say Toyota. And then model, what's the model? Let's just call it new model. Type, any type, seats, 4-seater, test notes. Let's add a picture here, so we'll give it a picture and put this picture in. Okay, so now we're going to save the vehicle, and it's saved. Now let's check on our vehicle list. Car 7, all the information is here, just what we want. Load car 1, car 6, and notice it didn't. So now what we need to do is we need to get our links. Let's update that. I'm going to copy, go down here, 10, copy those. I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to paste those links right in here. That's what I want to see. Now car 7. Okay, now we're going to reset the code here. And now when we click on car 7, it's going to load 6, 5. Perfect. That's the way I want it. Now we can add a picture. We can clear the picture. But you notice that when we're loading, that picture is not clearing and it's not loading. So we need to add that in. Load, clear the picture, and load it. So let's do that. Let's load the picture. All we need to do here is show the picture on load. So show picture. Here's the vehicle show picture, and add this macro into the vehicle load. So when we're loading it, all we need to do is just right click, paste that in here. Now, whatever picture is here is going to load. And there's no picture there, so that's it. So now we have a picture loading, and now it works perfectly. All right, great. Now we're able to add and view cars just the way we want it. So we've got a little bit more to do. I'm going to save that for next week. Next week, I'm going to show you how to add repairs and expenses, add fuel, add reminders, add meter tracking, and put that all together in a really amazing dashboard. Okay, thanks for sticking with me on this first part one of the vehicle expense tracker. It's a really amazing application, so much more to share with you. I do appreciate you sticking with me on these longer videos. I'll try to keep them closer to an hour after this because I know they get kind of long. Thank you again. If you want these workbooks, you want 100 of them, go ahead and pick up the $37 100 workbook zip. I've got 20 extra workbooks right now for you. That's not going to be around forever, so make sure you pick that up. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week for part 2 of the vehicle expense tracker. Thanks again.